Hi, student. In previous lecture, we we have discussed type of chemical reaction. Here, the type of reaction is combination reaction, decomposition reaction, photochemical decomposition reaction, precipitation reaction, neutralization reaction, single displacement reaction, double displacement reaction, electrolytic decomposition reaction, oxidation reduction reaction, and combustion reaction. You know that in previous lecture we have discussed combination reaction, decomposition reaction, photochemical decomposition reaction, and precipitation reaction. Today we will discuss neutralization reaction and single displacement reaction. Okay, student? Neutralization, single displacement reaction. Firstly, we are discuss neutralization reaction. In neutralization reaction, the neutralization reaction is the process. Neutralization reaction is the process in which acid react with base. In neutralization reaction, acid react with base to form salt, and water is known as neutralization reaction. That means when an acid react with base and produce salt and water, this type of reaction is known as neutralization reaction. For example, HCl. HCl is hydrochloric acid. We take hydrochloric acid and react it with sodium hydroxide. Dear student, our acid have H plus ion and base have OH minus ion. Okay? That here, and in NaOH, OH is present. That means NaOH is base. Here H plus is present. That means HCl is acid. Okay? Here acid HCl and base NaOH react each others and form a salt. A salt which is known as common salt. The salt is sodium chloride, salt and water. In this reaction, a acid react with a base, and form salt and water. That means this reaction is a neutralization reaction. Dear student, next example of neutralization reaction. Here H2SO4. H2SO4 known as sulfuric acid. King of acid. Sulfuric acid is the king of acid. H2SO4 is acid, and here KOH, in KOH, OH is present. That means KOH is a base. Here a acid, sulfuric acid, and a base as a potassium hydroxide react with each other's formed a salt as potassium sulfate. Salt is potassium sulfate and water. In this reaction, we observe an acid react with a base to produce salt and water. You know that a reaction in which acid react with base and produce salt and water, the reaction is known as neutralization reaction. Okay. The next reaction is single displacement reaction. In a single displacement reaction, there are three type observation. The first observation is displacement of less reactive metals by more reactive metals. Dear student, there are three types of single displacement reaction. In some reactions, less reactive metal displaced by more reactive metal, more active metals. For example, here iron, when iron metals react with copper sulfate, the color of copper sulfate is bluish color, blue color copper sulfate. But when you dip the iron nails in copper sulfate solution, it turns light green after some time due to formation of ferrous sulfate, FeSO4. Okay, here iron metals displace the copper. Iron metals Fe displace the copper Cu from their compound. That means it is a displacement reaction, but here displacement only one metals, so it is known as single displacement. Here next example, when copper react with silver nitrate. Dear student, copper as compared to silver, copper is more reactive metals. So copper displaced the silver from their compound and formed cupric nitrate and silver metals, because copper is more reactive than silver. Here only single metal displaced from their compound, so this type of reaction is known as single displacement reaction. Next example, here zinc and copper sulfate. Dear student, zinc is more reactive metal as compared to copper sulfate. For the understanding reactivity of metal, you observe chemical reactivity series in your NCERT book. Okay? If you observe the reactivity series, you observe zinc metal at the top as compared to copper. That means zinc is more reactive than copper. Due to high reactivity, zinc displaces less reactive copper from their compound and form zinc sulfate. The copper sulfate blue in color, but due to formation of zinc sulfate, solution became colorless. Here a single metal displaced from their compound, so this reaction is known as single displacement reaction. Okay. Now we have discussed second point of single displacement reaction. Here we understand about the displacement of less reactive metal by more reactive metal. Now we have discussed displacement of less active non-metal. Here less active metals displaced by more active metals, but here displacement of less active non-metals from its compound. For example, when you take sodium bromide and flow chlorine gas into it, dear student, chlorine is more reactive non-metals than bromine. So chlorine displaces bromine non-metals from their compound and produce sodium chloride from sodium bromide to sodium chloride. Dear student, here the displacement of single element from their compound, so it is known as single displacement reaction. Next example, here potassium iodide Ki, potassium iodide react with chlorine gas. Dear student, chlorine is more reactive. Chlorine is more reactive non-metal as compared to iodine. So, chlorine displaces the iodine from their compound and produce potassium chloride. Here, only single metal iodine displaced from their compound, so it is known as single displacement reaction. Dear student, you understand about two types of single displacement reaction. First, less reactive metals displaced by more reactive metals. Second, displacement of less reactive non-metals from the compound. Now, we are discuss third point of single displacement reaction. The third point is displacement of hydrogen from acids by active metals. Dear student, in some reactions, metal displaces the hydrogen gas from the acid. The more active metals, which are more reactive than hydrogen atom, displace the hydrogen atom from the acid. For example, zinc. When you dip the zinc metal or zinc dust into dilute sulfuric acid, zinc displaces the hydrogen and produce ZnSO4, and hydrogen displaced as gas. Here, zinc also displaces hydrogen from the HCl and produce hydrogen gas and zinc chloride. In these reactions, only single elements, that is hydrogen, displaced from their compound, so it is also known as single displacement reaction. Here, zinc metals react with phosphoric acid. Zinc displaces the hydrogen in the form of hydrogen gas and produce zinc phosphate. In this reaction, only single element displaced, so it is also known as single displacement reaction. Next reaction, the reaction between zinc metal and acetic acid, CH3COOH, is known as acetic acid. The reaction between zinc metal and acetic acid. From acetic acid, hydrogen of acetic acid displaced by zinc metal and produce hydrogen gas and zinc acetate. In this reaction, only hydrogen element displaced from the compound, so it is also known as single displacement reaction. Dear student, take a screenshot given content and write in your notebook and solve the questions given in your NCERT book. Thank you very much. Take a screenshot.